Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And yes, another card and video using one of my all-time favorites, the Mushroom Stems Wafer die set. I have a playlist with a couple dozen videos using this set. I will have it linked in the end screen at the very end of the video. I did some pattern paper, kind of paper piecing, not really, for these. So they're little pattern paper mushrooms. And I combined it with some other oldie but goodie favorites, a couple of new products that I've used multiple times now. And yeah, Splatter, as always. So everything I used will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That is what helps keeps the lights on, heaters going, enables me to keep bringing out content. And that's it for the chatter. Let's get into making the card. So pattern paper, something that I do like to collect and hoard, aka curate. But recently I got this Simple Stories Simple Vintage Flower Shop. I had ordered it. Did I need it? No. But it was pretty, so I ordered it and it got here recently. And yeah, I was looking at this little mushroom die set and I was like, it's something I've been wanting to do for a while. I was like, oh, these little mushroom caps would look super cute done in pattern paper. So I chose 3 patterns from the pack and had trimmed them out and then die cut them. And then the rest of the parts of these mushrooms, I just die cut from Simon Says Stamp's smooth white cardstock. And then to add depth and dimension, very simple ink blending. I'm starting with Cookie Positively Saturated ink and blending that onto like the undersides of the mushrooms and the stems. And then I'm also going to blend that onto the pattern paper, because whether you're doing like just die cut pieces or doing actual like paper piecing, which I've shown in many videos over the years where I've, trimmed it out to fit like a stamped image, you want to add, whether it be ink blending or markers or just things like that, to the pattern paper to have it blend more with your project. So since I was blending all this ink onto the rest of the mushroom pieces, the caps or the pattern paper needed a bit of ink blending as well. It just kind of makes everything a little more cohesive. So I decided to adhere the pattern paper to the mushroom caps that also were just die cut from white cardstock because I had those pieces sitting here. This just gave it a little bit more strength plus a tiny bit more dimension. You could skip this and just adhere the pattern paper to the finished mushrooms. It doesn't really matter, but I had the pieces sitting here, so I just adhered them with my craft tacky glue. And then I'm going to assemble my little mushrooms. They're so cute. They're so cute. And again, I don't know why I have fixated on these, but they're fun and they go with so many things. And it's another one of those things where I get a kick out of the comments where I've had a lot of you say similar things. They were like, I just, didn't really see the appeal of these. And then, I've convinced you. And it's like, exactly. Because I've said this, when this die set was first released, I was just kind of like, okay, mushrooms, whatever. Went on about my day, didn't really think about them. And then I started using them. And then I didn't stop. And here we are, a couple dozen videos later. I still reach for them. I love them. So after I assembled my little mushrooms, I also die cut white cardstock using, this is the Swing Blossoms wafer die. This came out a while ago. And this was another one that I just kind of overlooked. It was in my stash and I forgot about it. And again, digging through, looking for other things, I came across it again and I was like, this is a really cute little die set. What the heck? So I die cut that from white cardstock. And then another oldie but goodie is the Ornamental Fine Leaves, which I've used in other videos. I like this one for like filler, things like that. So I've got them die cut and I use CELERY ink and then Perfection ink with Mellow Blending Brush. And all these pieces are stuck just to a grip mat, just to kind of help hold things in place. And then I used that Cookie ink, that kind of tanny brown color, and added that as well, just to tone it back a little and to I'm kind of going for a little bit of soft vintage grunge, just a hint, not a ton, but just a bit. And then the little flower centers, I just stuck to a piece of purple tape, keeps them all contained. And I'd added Zest ink and then a bit of that Cookie ink as well. And then to assemble the little flowers on this Swing Blossoms wafer die, super simple. Just added adhesive, popped on the flower, popped in the center. That's it. Just easy. And don't be surprised if you see this wafer die make more appearances now that I've actually finally used it. I just like the shape of it. I was like, oh, we can nestle so many things in there. Not just the mushrooms, but obviously the mushrooms, other little florals. Like, I don't know. The shape of it is just really cute. And you could also snip this apart, you know? Options. I like options. So, yeah, this one, hopefully I won't lose it again. So anyway, I was just adding craft tacky glue to each of the little flower areas and then just picking up the pieces with my embellishment wand. The little florals I left just white. I didn't bother adding any ink blending to those. And then once I've got this assembled, I am going to go and do the background for my card front, which for this I'm using the newer Pepita background, which I've used multiple times now. This is another one that at first glance, you just kind of look over and it's just like, okay. It's another one of those versatile backgrounds. Any sort of geometric style or repetitive pattern, really, always a fan. Because they could work with just about anything. So this time, I put it on top of a piece of copy paper so I could see what I'm doing. Because usually I just keep it stuck to that, the sheet that's got the like black printed image. But I needed to see where the ink was on this. So I've got it face up, just on copy paper. And then I'm inking it up with positively saturated inks, but I'm using blending brushes to add the ink. So that makes the ink a lot softer. And the 3 colors I used were the cookie ink, lilac, and tide pool. And I purposely didn't press it down. I purposely didn't ink up the stamp perfectly. It doesn't need to be, perfection is always overrated. And it just gives like a softer background. It's blended, a bit of texture. It's fun. So before putting it away, I did it a second time, and I'm doing this on the inside of my card. So I put some Post-it tape right on the score line, and then I'm pressing the inside of my card onto this so that I will stamp this background on the inside as well. And then we'll come back to the inside of the card a little bit later. And then for the panel I did for the card front, I ended up cutting this down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Yeah, I knocked off like a 1/4 inch off each side. So I've got my background. And then it's time to start like assembling my greenery and my little mushrooms. And all of this I'm just going to adhere with craft tacky glue. And just kind of placing it strategically. There's no need to like put adhesive behind every little piece of the die cut. Plus I like little areas where, the leaves pop up here and there because they're not glued down. So it just also adds a bit of dimension to everything. So adhered my little greenery bits, and then I can start adhering my little pattern paper mushrooms. So same thing, just adhering everything with the craft tacky glue. So I'm going to get the 2 larger mushrooms in place before I adhere that little, it's not little, it's a good size, this little swing blossom wafer die. And I'm going to adhere the 2 larger ones first. Then I get in here the little florals, and then I'll tuck in that last little tiny mushroom. This was fun. And again, I don't do like grunge per se very often, but brown ink is definitely something you shouldn't overlook. And it has its place. It really does. This is kind of more my type of grunge, very still sort of clean and simple. I don't know how else to describe it. Anyway, for my sentiments, I'm using the CZ Design Thank You Basics. This is one that I will use a lot. I am still hoping. There wasn't a coordinating wafer die for this one, but I mentioned it in a previous video. I assume that it was probably like a production delay because this one it needs a coordinating wafer die, in my opinion. Like I throw my vote in for coordinating wafer die set for this because I'll get it in a heartbeat. Because yeah. If I don't, I would rather avoid fussy cutting at all costs. Anyway, it just so happened that thank you sentiment just fit in my background. So I stamped it with Mocha Positively Saturated ink. And then I'm doing the same thing on the inside of the card with another sentiment. And my Mocha ink pad needed to be re-inked, which was timely because I actually pulled out my re-inkers and I'm going to use them in a second here. So on the inside of the card, after I stamped that sentiment, I had done 2 more of just the smaller mushrooms with the pattern paper and the ink blending so I could adhere them to the inside of the card just to give it that little extra something. So I adhered those into place. And then for my card front, I am going to pop that onto the card base with Big Mama foam tape, gives it just a little bit of dimension without creating a ton of bulk. So I'm going to put this on the back of this card front panel, and then I can adhere this to my card base. And my card base is a top folding A2 white note card, so 4¼ by 5½ inches. So once I've got this popped into place onto the card, I'm just going to use a little bit of tape to tape the card closed, just in case. And then we're going to add splatter, of course. So I'm going to put this in my splat box, and I'm going to use white gouache first. So I'll just put a little bit of my white gouache onto my little palette here. And once I've got that there, I'm going to add a little bit of water. I just dip my little fan brush into some water to thin it out so that I can get a good consistency going. And then I'm going to splatter this. And I didn't mask off the sentiment because I forgot. But I'm going to come back to that. So thankfully, I didn't get a bunch of splatter on the sentiment, which was just dumb luck more than anything. Although, again, if I had like ruined the sentiment, that's a time when I would just stamp it on a separate piece of cardstock or heat emboss it and then like fussy cut it or cut it into a banner and just adhere it on top. You know, there's always ways generally to fix the oopsies. But after I let the splatter dry, I took the stamp, made sure it was clean, there's no ink on it, used the stamp to mask the sentiment so that I can add more splatter. So I added more white gouache to my palette, and then I'm using the Mocha re-inker. I've shown this in different ways. I've just smushed, you know, water reactive inks and mixed it with the gouache. Or you can use re-inkers if you have them. You just gotta experiment, really. The re-inker is obviously giving you a little bit more concentrated color, so I can get it quite a bit darker. And I added just a smidge of water to get it a little bit more to the consistency I wanted. And then I can splatter this. And the reason I like mixing rather than just like splattering with the re-inker, I mentioned this in other videos, re-inkers and like just regular, you know, water reactive dye inks, splattering with them works, but sometimes it looks funny because the way the ink as it's like absorbing into the cardstock, sometimes it'll feather out and it just ends up looking kind of blurry. Like it doesn't look like splatter. I'm kind of splitting hairs to a degree because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I just prefer to mix it either with paint or with gouache. It just gives better results. And because I like splatter so much, I will be picky about it. So this was going to be my final bit of embellishment, these Lilac Pawsitively Dazzling gems. But then when I was like technically done this card and I was, you know, cleaning up some of my stuff, I had this Flickering Butterflies wafer die sitting there and I was like, oh yeah, I was going to use that too. This one I've used like a million times. So many times I don't even, like this is one of my most favorite wafer dies. I've had this for years. I love it. So I just die cut a scrap of this like purple cardstock. No idea where this cardstock came from. It was just in my stash. So I die cut this bit of purple cardstock because the color just kind of went with the pattern paper. And then just adhered these just by putting a tiny bit of adhesive right behind the body. So the wings, again, they pop up a little bit. It creates a bit of dimension without any bulk. So we got our little butterflies. I love this wafer die. And then the remaining ones I'm going to stick on the inside because, you know, it just always seems to kind of work out that way. So I'll adhere these little butterflies to the inside of the card as well. And they really do just finish it off. Like how cute are these? So once I get these adhered, then the card is officially complete. So I got little pattern paper mushrooms and the textured background and splatter and butterflies and bling and again, just fun. Loads of fun. So yeah. My kind of vintage, my kind of grunge, you know? So once everything was adhered and the glue was dry, this card was complete. So like I mentioned, I'll have the playlist linked at the end of the video, and then all the supplies I used will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. I very much appreciate it, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!